They're going to take your land away, and you're going to like it. All that's coming up on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the podcast. Today I am kind of out in the countryside in South Africa. As a matter of fact, a while ago I saw a monkey standing in the middle of the road. I don't know if he was collecting tolls or what, but I just blew on past him. So I'm out here because I'm making this story about the white farmers being murdered in South Africa, and that is a thing, definitely a thing. But I'm also looking into this concept of expropriation without compensation that the government of South Africa has been talking about for some time. What they've been saying is that they're going to redistribute the land because, you know, kind of like Barack Obama, you didn't earn that. And because you didn't earn that, they believe they can take it away. They've passed a law that gives the government the right to take away the farmers' land without compensating them. When they do that, then they're going to redistribute the land to people who deserve it more somehow. The government has over 42 million acres of land that's publicly owned. That means that it could give every South African family over 2.5 acres of their own property if it wanted to. But instead, it's been pushing this idea of expropriation without compensation. That means taking land away from the farmers who have title and deed to their land, some of whom have been on their property for generations. And that's causing some serious unrest. One of the problems is that people have decided, since that's supposed to happen at some point, that they're going to go and claim their land right away. And that means they're moving in onto people's property and squatting, trespassing essentially, and setting up houses and even whole villages on people's farms. This squatters camp is in the countryside west of Pretoria, and it's inhabited by several thousand people at least. It's a mixture of people from Mozambique and here in South Africa and other places. And most of these people either work in the farms around here or they don't work at all. And when they don't work at all, many of the women that I talked to said that they get a stipend from the government because they have babies. So they live on that stipend. Obviously, they're not living real high on that stipend, but because of that, more and more people are coming into South Africa in order to take advantage of the social welfare that doesn't exist in their countries. So there's a group called AfriForum that has a security team who helps these farmers and ranchers get their land back from the squatters.
It's Ian Cameron, and I'm the head of community safety at AfriForum. So my responsibility as the head of community safety in AfriForum is to establish community safety networks across the country. Currently, we've got just about 140 community safety networks in South Africa with just under 10,000 volunteers that are involved. And we've got a national team that not only coordinates these structures on ground level, but also trains them. It's crucial for us to act within the framework of the law. And then any disadvantaged or a specific community that has a certain problem can approach us, and then we see how we can assist them. Obviously, with the big farm attack issue in South Africa, we've been approached by a lot of rural communities, but it's interesting because the majority of our community safety initiatives are in urban areas. And the interesting part is that we're getting approached even more by regions like this, where it's semi-urban and with vast rural areas surrounding, where they've got a problem with civil unrest. And this civil unrest has not only, it leaves people filled with fear, but it also gives a sense of doubt for the future for them, and the reason being that their infrastructure and their businesses and so on are being targeted by these protesters.
So explain to me the issues that are brought to bear on these communities because of illegal immigration?
Well, I mean, let's take a community like this as an example. South Africa has a huge struggling Department of Health. So just out of a health perspective, now you've got literally millions of illegal immigrants coming across our borders. Our borders aren't protected at all. Just 2 weeks ago, our Minister of Defence admitted that the South African National Defence Force is actually worth nothing at the moment. They're completely bankrupt. They don't have not only training, but they also don't have the necessary resources to even defend the country in any way. So our borders are open, and these people are flooding in from places like Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Swaziland, and so forth. I think the risk is that if you take the health system, now these people are clogging up the health system, and local people that can't afford private health care are now, being left behind because of illegal elements coming into the country. Obviously, as you would know, out of a US perspective, that would increase crime as well, and it increases poverty. So that the general socio-economic conditions in the country is on a decline. We've got the lowest unemployment rate that we've had in years. I think it's the lowest that it's been in 9 years, and it's getting worse. When we look at violence in the country and you look at who are the people that are involved in violent crime, it's interesting to see that per region you can see different nationalities being involved. Provinces like Limpopo or Gauteng or Mpumalanga, you often see that Mozambicans, Zimbabweans with South Africans act in gangs or syndicates of some sort. In places like the Free State, you see South Africans and Lesotho nationals. In places like Northern KwaZulu-Natal, you see Swazi nationals. So there's a really bigger dynamic going on than just saying this is a South African problem.
Interesting. So in a situation like this, explain the problem of squatters and land grabbers and what's being done about it, and how your team can help.
Yeah, so for the past 2 to 3 years, the expropriation without compensation issue regarding land has become a major topic in the public debate in South Africa. Since that has happened, we've seen a drastic increase of illegal land occupation. In fact, what we've recorded as AfriForum is more than 110 cases since January of 2019 where land is being illegally occupied. A lot of it is state land and other times private land. Where AfriForum comes in is that any landowner can approach us, and if it's something that can be handled on an urgent basis, then we get involved. So if it's something that you come to me and say my land is being occupied now, we can assist you as to how to approach the police, what you need to do with the police, what type of case you need to open. Unfortunately, we sit with a situation where the police don't always want to open trespassing cases, and then we have to get involved to compel them to do it. Once that has been done, we can go to court. We can get a court order, an eviction order, and from there we can make sure that the necessary parties are coordinated to make sure that the dangerous elements are removed.
And this is on government land as well.
Government land as well. We don't get involved directly with government land with the eviction itself. What we do, although do, like here today, is that because we have community safety structures and a good relationship with the South African Police Service, we make sure that our community structures and that our members in the region, that their property is kept safe, and that we make sure that, for example, their farms aren't burned down. In the last week here, several farms were set on fire, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Do you respond in the case of farm attacks or anything?
We do. We actually have several parts of the circle, if I can call it, or the cycle that we take part in. So the initial response when it comes to, for example, Medivac or something like that, we organize for that to happen. We've got an entire team that only makes sure that the necessary, for example, helicopter goes out and picks up the victim if in a critical condition. We also then coordinate ground teams to see if we can arrest the perpetrators, obviously in cooperation with the South African Police Service and other necessary security institutions in the region. We've taken it even further now to not only train people to do all the things I've mentioned, we've taken it further to have a victim empowerment scheme. So we've got a trauma unit, and all they do is not only assist the people with trauma when it comes to counseling and so on, but also to take them through the court process. We need to make sure that they know what to expect. We need to make sure that their statements are taken properly. It doesn't always happen, and because of the pressure on the South African police with the amount of cases they have to handle, they don't always have the capacity to spend a lot of time on statements. So we need to make sure that it's done properly, that if we get to prosecution, that the prosecution can run smoothly.
What are you doing in Cape Town and why?
So I think it's crucial to mention that, I think often because of the political debates in the country, it's nice for certain parties like the ANC to create perceptions about certain groups. And I think, from AfriForum's side, we are there to help communities. We are there as a proudly Afrikaans organization, Afrikaner organization, and for us it's important to see that we have mutual recognition and respect for everyone in the country. What we've now done, specifically in the Western Cape with the gang violence issue, is we've approached some of the community policing institutions there, and we are now in a process of presenting anti-rape training to them. They've got a massive rape problem in these gang plagued areas, and we are now seeing how we can assist them when it comes to, for example, rape. And we need to train people how they can be preventive, how they can make sure that it doesn't happen with them. We also give them courses on, for example, how to have general awareness, situational awareness, and all of these things will help to be proactive in the fight against violence in the area that they live.
Yeah, high threat awareness training. That's
exactly.
That's really good.
Also, communication networks. When I visited the Cape Flats 2-3 weeks ago, it was very clear to us that they didn't have very good communication structures. So if someone was to be shot in gang violence, they wouldn't always know how to coordinate it immediately. So now we're seeing if we can implement something like that for them. So we need to see how we can assist the innocent people in the community. And we need to have a legal way of pushing back against these gangs. It's not fair that so many innocent people, and especially the children, are getting killed and hurt when it comes to this violence. And it's sad to say, but government has done little or nothing to stop this. So African Police Service, they are completely outnumbered. They don't have the resources they need. A lot of them live in the areas where the gangs are. And they should have been, or the gang unit should have been deployed from a whole nother region. They mustn't know anyone there. And that's not happening. The South African Police Service's task force, the special task force, doesn't have the resources it needs anymore. And sending in the military is not a solution. It's a temporary thing. It creates breathing room. It might create a bit of peace for a while. But once they leave, it's just going to carry on again. The other part is there's no criminal intelligence going on there. So the police don't have that capacity. Crime intelligence South Africa is lacking, very seriously lacking. We don't have strong special units anymore. And without intelligence, we're not going to chop off the snake's head. And when we look at the gangs in Cape Town, the majority of the gang leaders don't even live in the gang-ridden areas. They live in nice places like Hermanus, George, Mossel Bay, and they don't live where the violence occurs.
So you have an intelligence wing, right? That funded by AfriForum, correct?
Yeah, so
you share that with the local law enforcement?
Yeah, if we've got information and there are trustworthy people on ground level, we will definitely speak with them. It's more focused on two things. The main thing is violence in rural areas when it comes to farm attacks that we've built over the years. And then the second part is specifically related to unrest and land grabs. So the unrest and land grabs we put together. And it's important that we take those into consideration, especially the land grab part, because if this expropriation without compensation issue is going to grow to the point where we think it is, it's going to have a serious threat to the South African economy. And we hear idiotic statements by people like Ace Magashule just this last week saying again that the Reserve Bank in South Africa must be nationalized. Every time he says that, you can see the rand dropping in value, and it just doesn't make sense to us. And that's why we need to monitor these things, and also that we can keep the public informed about what the reality is. Because I think the idea that the South African president creates when he, for example, spoke in New York at a UN function last year, is that everything's great. There are no farm attacks, there are no land grabs in South Africa, when we know it's an utter lie.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.